Hello, and welcome. This video is a continuation of my previous ranking every episode of Attack on Titan video, and if you haven't seen that yet, then I go all the way up to what I picked as the 11th best episode of the series. Here I'm going to focus in more detail on what I consider to be the 10 best episodes of Attack on Titan. These aren't just some of the best episodes of the series, but ones that I consider to be amongst the greatest episodes in all of anime. And honestly, despite this being a top 10 list, I could see the case being made for any one of these to be the best episode in all of Attack on Titan. So the ordering isn't too important here. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get right into number 10. Armin or Erwin. One must live and the other perish. This is one of my favorite episodes to watch with other people because no matter who you think should have received the serum and become the Colossal Titan, you have to agree that either choice would have greatly impacted the rest of the series. I've seen so many theories and videos about what if it was Erwin instead of Armin, and not a single one of them goes in the same direction, which is what makes Attack on Titan so great. We're part of the story too, and we won't know how the choices the characters make impact the future until it happens. Now, as for who I would have chosen, I've already mentioned that Erwin is my favorite character, but I understand why Levi chose Armin. Erwin had already given up his life for the mission. He was prepared to die after Levi's decision, and as Levi put it, it was time for Erwin to rest, to free him from this nightmare. And I'm glad Levi didn't regret the decision to choose Armin. Now, as impactful as his choice is, the rest of the episode builds it up beautifully. There's almost no music played until the end. All you really hear are the character dialogues and occasional sound effects, and it draws you in so well. I've put Two Brothers at only number 9. I remember when this first came out and my immediate reaction was that this was the best episode of the entire series. The previous two are thrill rides that bring us to this critical moment of the invasion of Shiganshina. I absolutely love the moment where Zeke and Eren make contact. When this happens, everyone's fighting is stopped and you feel your stomach sinking knowing that whatever happens next will forever change this series. And then when Eren is transported to the paths, you get all these flashes with some neat Easter eggs in there, but then we're led to the paths themselves. From here on out, humanity's future will be decided by either Eren or Zeke, two brothers with conflicting ideals and the power of God right before them. But they're not the only two brothers involved. That's what's amazing about this episode. There are 3 pairs of brothers. You also have Porco and his relationship with Marcel. Yeah, Marcel's dead, but Porco is able to do what the Jaw Titan always does. Die protecting Reiner, knowing full well that he was always better than him. And then you have Falco and Colt. Now, I've seen a lot of criticism with how Attack on Titan handles themes of love, and I can understand that. However, other than with Ymir and Historia, Colt being by his brother's side, knowing full well he's about to die, but still telling him he'll be there for him, is the truest expression of love in the entire series. I use the word spectacle fairly often with ranking every other episode, but this one more than deserves being described as one. And here we are, the history and truth of the outside world is revealed through Grisha's journals. It's so bittersweet seeing how close Erwin came to the revelation, but I can't help but feel the man would be broken upon knowing the truth that the struggle was never humanity versus Titans, but the world versus Eldia. There is so much exposition in this single episode that I genuinely recommend watching it multiple times to get the full details. Heck, a lot of info still comes out in the following episode, but finally reaching this moment, with how much was sacrificed to get here, it's cathartic to say the least that Eren and the others managed to survive to attain the truth. However, the real story begins moving forward. Everything up to this point has been the warm-up. Now, Paradis has to prepare themselves for what will come and what they have to do. In a lesser story, getting to the basement and uncovering the truth will lead right into the end, but that wouldn't provide all the answers we were looking for. Instead, the veil of uncertainty has been revealed to show the despair that comes with knowing what lies ahead. But, for now, all they can do is to learn from Grisha's past and what led them all to this moment. You know I had to put Warrior in the top 10. It's without a doubt the earliest episode in this list, and the only one from either season 1 or 2 to be here. Now, some may criticize this episode as being too looked upon for the revelation and moment of betrayal, but the entire episode is perfectly laid out to deliver this moment. It's hilarious how casual Rhaina is to Eren about the Armored and Colossal Titans' identities. It's practically off screen. I had mentioned when I was covering the episode Smile that someone online spoiled the identities of the Armored and Colossal Titans for me, but I didn't know how it was revealed. And so seeing that it was done in such a boring way made me do a triple take. I had to rewind the episode several times in case I missed something, but nope, that's how it is. Just right there. Of course, that's not why the episode is so highly rated, as when Rhaina reaches its breaking point and reveals in full the identities of the traitors is when we get the greatest betrayal I've ever seen. I'm not even going to call it one of. I can't think of anything that would top this, anime or otherwise. Warrior truly feels like the first major turning point of this story. We've already known Annie's identity, but it was clear she wasn't working on her own. And now the story takes us down the path that it was never about humanity versus Titans, but something far greater threatening humanity within the walls. Not going to lie, I wasn't expecting us to see the origin of the Titans and Ymir's past. I thought it would be something left obscure on purpose from what Eren Kruger said about Ymir. How there's no real definitive way to understand what happened all that long ago. But we see the brutal and downright depressing life she lived. The Eldians weren't her people, they were barbarians who raided and enslaved her village. She was only ever seen as a weapon, a pawn, for the tyrannical King Fritz of the Eldian tribe, and he used her to wipe out his opponents, to build an empire. At the beginning of the episode, King Fritz is just a wandering brute, but towards the end of Ymir's life, he is ruling the most powerful and dominant empire that the world had ever seen. And when you see the end of his life, it tells you one of the horrifying truths of real world history. Oftentimes, the worst people who ever lived don't get retribution for their actions. King Fritz died of natural causes as not just the most evil man who ever lived, but the most successful and powerful one, and his will haunts the rest of the world for thousands of years later. But for even longer to Ymir, who continued on as a slave to the king's will. Time passes differently in the paths, and here we see how every Titan is created by nothing more than Ymir herself with a small bucket of water to sculpt armies out of sand. How long has she been in here for? Thousands of years? Maybe millions? Maybe even longer? All that time just to be a slave to the king's will and continue his demands long after his death. And Eren is the only one who offers to set her free. Ymir's entire backstory is only about 8.5 minutes long, and yet it's so impactful, so heartbreaking, that it'll stick with you for the rest of the show. And with her siding with Eren, that's all that needs to happen for the rumbling to begin. Also, if you've made it this far watching these videos, then as a reward, I shall give you my... Now, I know it might seem a bit odd that I'm ranking the special episodes as one single episode when they're an hour and 24 minutes each, and I know they've been cut up into regular sized episodes for rebroadcasting in Japan with their own OP and EDs, but I'm ranking them as they are for release, and this is how they're shown on Crunchyroll and how I also experience them, and the majority of people I imagine watching this video experience them as well. So with episodes as long as these are coming at the very end of the series, there's a lot of weight placed on them, so you'd expect each of them to not disappoint. And yeah, people have criticized the production and marketing of the final season for taking 3 whole years and having an unusual naming convention, but it's really not that hard to follow. You have part 1, 2, 3, and 4. The order isn't that difficult to follow, and now we can watch them all at any time. That being said, let me talk about the first special episode itself, and yeah, I'm actually really glad they handled the final 2 episodes the way they did. It's almost like they just made their own movies for such momentous parts of the story. The first special episode begins with characters we've never met and will never see again. The first 11 minutes are solely focused on the rumbling and how Eren is turning the world around Paradise into a trampled, bloody wasteland. Nothing is spared from the unending onslaught of the colossal titans. Everything that lies before Eren is nothing more than an insect that's in his way to attaining what he sees as freedom. But after that, we get to spend the rest of the episode focusing on the Alliance. There's so many impactful and memorable moments here, from Floch somehow being alive and causing Hanji to go out in a literal blaze of glory, to the rest of the Alliance steeling themselves for the inevitable that they will need to kill Eren. I really like that we get some quiet time between the members of the Alliance. They've already hashed out their differences, but now they know what to do next, and what is resting on their shoulders. And with Hanji's sacrifice, we are given some of the best ODM action we've ever seen in this series. Hanji's death had me crying harder than any other moment in this series prior, and we'll never forget you. But the rest of the Alliance needs to carry on, to finish the mission, and to save whatever remains left of humanity. I feel that declaration of war is similar to Warrior in how it's executed. The entire episode is built up for the moment we're all thinking about: Eren's transformation and attack on Liberia. But just like in that episode, everything is laid out perfectly to get to this moment. Man, Willy Tybur is only really a factor in 2 episodes of the series, and yet he leaves such a lasting impression on you. He wasn't a good person, but he was a representative from the only Eldians whom the rest of the world respected. Now, with his death, nothing is off the table. Eren fully realizes what's going to happen after this moment and how all of humanity will respond. But he's prepared for that. He knows what he's getting into. And more than anything, he wants to let Reiner know how it felt for him all those years ago when he broke down the wall and brought war to Paradise. This is another episode that I find it difficult to explain what makes it so great, enough to be in the top 5 of the series for me. It all hinges on one moment and getting that moment properly built up for the incredible payoff, but it delivers. When I first saw this episode when it came out, I was left shaking, as it hit me that there's no going back. Eren really is this evil now. He'll stop at nothing to become the very devil that the world sees him as. Hero is regarded as perhaps the best episode of the series for many people, and it's hard to argue against that. It really is a perfect episode. The build-up to this point has brought Eren and the others to the most impossible situation they've ever been in, as perhaps the only way out is through death. But as Commander Erwin has made clear throughout the series, you must be willing to sacrifice everything in order to accomplish anything. Levi had to make that clear earlier to Erwin and sacrifice him as well as the rest of the scouts outside Shiganshina in order to get to Zeke. But after an insane fight sequence, he's unable to do just that. Zeke escapes and lives to cause more monkey trouble another day. Now, I do think the fight between Reiner and the rest of Eren's squad is actually an underrated part of this episode. It's not the main focus, but you can tell that everyone is an extremely capable fighter, even with Sasha getting wounded. But fortunately, Hanji is still alive to provide assistance, and that flip that Mikasa does is so unnecessary, but man is it cool. Cool guys may not look at explosions, but cooler girls look directly into their enemy's throat after bombing them. Put that on a t-shirt. And of course, the highlight of the episode, Armin's sacrifice, knowing he won't be able to see the sea after all in order to defeat the colossal titan. What I love so much about this episode is that despite how hopeless everything was, the Survey Corps was using only the tools and methods they had, and Eren finally getting that titan kill that he's always dreamed of on the colossal. It may have cost nearly everything, including Armin and Erwin, but they accomplished the impossible victory. Eren looks at his best friend, knowing full well that Armin has always been braver than everyone else, and that he is a hero. It was Eren. Everything was Eren. Every decision, every moment, every action has been chosen by Eren. Every sacrifice made, every life lost, every path walked was Eren. He did it all. It's his story, his choices, and everyone else is just a pawn to him, including his own father. It's unreal how much foreshadowing and planning ahead there is in Attack on Titan. It's wild how many callbacks and hints there were early on with what will happen, what will come next. And here we finally get the revelation of the ability of the Attack Titan, that it can see into the future. Grisha, ever since he got to Shiganshina, has been haunted by his own son. He can never put off his own fate to the end. This day will come no matter what, and all he can do is prepare for the moments laid out. Prepare by creating the journals that will one day be discovered by Eren, and prepare by uncovering the location of the royal family so he can steal their Titan. Zeke may have entered into Eren's memories hoping to show Eren how Grisha was to him, but instead Grisha was a supportive father to Eren that he never was to Zeke. If anything, Grisha wouldn't have wanted Eren to go down this path. But Grisha made that decision long ago when he went outside the walls of Liberio for the first time and saw what was there for him, for his sister, for all Eldians. Seeing Eren confront his father and outright manipulate him was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in anime, Attack on Titan or otherwise. It's almost too much to watch, a broken and vulnerable man who's manipulated into committing a horrible atrocity by his own son. And in the aftermath, that's when Grisha realizes that he never should have manipulated his first son. Zeke has the only loving embrace he's ever had with his father, but it's far too late, as now Eren will only get what he wants. The future belongs to Eren, no one else. Zeke and the rest of the world will soon realize what this truly means for the fate of humanity. Here we go, the final episode of the ranking, and the final episode of the entire series. Everything has led to this point, the final battle between Eren and the rest of the world. Now, I'm sure many people have conflicting feelings about the ending, and I'll get to that. But before I cover the ending, I want to gush about what happens before. This episode is nearly an hour and a half long, and the first, 55 minutes is a battle of heaven and earth. Allow me to say this one more time for these rankings. But what a spectacle. The Alliance really are the strongest fighters remaining for humanity. Who else will be able to take on an entire army of ancient titans led by the founder, Ymir herself? And I love the visual design on each of the ancient titans with how unique and distinct they are from one another. Me personally, my favorite titan design was a Warhammer titan from when we first saw her. And seeing Lara come back as well as other ancient Warhammers, it's just too cool. Oh yeah, and Falco flies now, just like his name suggests. I have seen some criticism that this is the only battle where none of the main characters, other than Eren, die, but I wanted them all to live. We've had enough death for the entire series, and it's not like they're unscathed. Levi is brutally wounded and left crippled for the rest of his life after this. But stellar animation and fight scenes aside, I still would rank the finale of the series as the best episode overall. This is what everything has been building up to. We've come such a long way to get to this point. And so many expectations are put onto the finale. How it would be animated, what would happen, if they would change or expand on anything from the manga. I was anime only until the end, but I knew that the finale of the manga was controversial to say the least. But I'm glad my expectations were a bit subdued in the first place, because I wasn't expecting what ended up happening, and to make all my thoughts about the ending as succinct as possible, I'd say I was very satisfied with the result. In fact, after rewatching it more than a month has passed, I really do think that Attack on Titan ended on the best note that it could. Let's address the most obvious point that people bring up when talking about the ending, and that's Eren's characterization here. And I'm just gonna say it, I don't think his breakdown makes him a weak character. If anything, this is what Eren had been like all along. This is the Eren we knew from seasons 1 to 3. He was never meant to be a badass. He was a dorky, pathetic kid way in over his head, given the literal powers of a god. And he's been witnessing the past, present, and future for who knows how long. It only makes sense that he would break down and let his emotions flood him. Even Armin calls him pathetic, and after I watched the finale, I went back and read chapter 139, and I'd have to say, I'm really happy with how they handled it. Armin realizing that he's just as guilty for causing 80% of humanity to be wiped out, and that if anything, if there's a hell, then they'll go there together. This moment right here, the two of them embracing, reaffirming their brotherhood, swearing that they'll see each other again, is legitimately one of my favorite moments in the entire series, perhaps all of anime. And then there's Mikasa and how Ymir has watched her life in order to let go of who she loved. I understand the criticism of Ymir somehow falling in love with the man who took everything from her, but I do appreciate how they end the lineage of the Titans this way. Ymir, through love or Stockholm Syndrome or whatever, needed to learn to let go, and Mikasa delivering the killing blow to Eren was what she needed to witness. There's so many other moments I can praise about the finale, but the part that hit me the hardest without a doubt is this moment with Levi reflecting on how he's the only one from the old guard to have survived. The last remaining scout from before the rest joined, and seeing all of his fallen comrades. Levi will continue living on, bringing the memories of all those he fought alongside with him into the future, and seeing the ghosts of the fallen, and then Sasha standing in front of Connie and John. This part hit me so hard, I don't even know how long it was that I cried for. And I'm so glad that we got an epilogue showing what the world is like 3 years from now. Paradise is run by a militant faction who still sees the island as threatened by the rest of humanity. But the members of the Alliance are all ready to go back and bring a message of peace from the outside world. There's this lingering feeling of hope for the future, and it seems like it was fruitful, as during the end credits, you can see Mikasa meeting with the members of the Alliance underneath a tree. Yes, Shiganshina is one day nuked and annihilated, but with the end credits, it looks like this is hundreds, if not thousands of years in the future. The song playing by Linked Horizon is even titled, To You. 2,000 or 20,000 years from now. The destruction that takes place is during a time when Titans are a distant memory, and no longer a realistic conflict until the far future is shown and a young boy and his dog venture into the tree that was the final resting place of Eren Yeager. I do realize why this ending is controversial, but I can't feel that it was disappointing to me. As for what I've seen the most criticism for, Eren's breakdown, Ymir being in love with King Fritz, 80% of humanity being wiped out, because Eren couldn't think of a better plan, run a sniff. The fact that one day Shiganshina is destroyed anyway, and it looks like the cycle repeats. These are all valid criticisms I've heard, and if they are the reason you don't like the ending, then that's fine. I'm not going to decide your tastes for you. But for me, this was the ending I had hoped for. A story as dark and bleak as Attack on Titan is, I wasn't expecting an ending where everyone is able to come out on top. The message this leaves you with is depressing, knowing that humans through one way or another will always find a way to fight and try to wipe each other out. The cycle of violence is inevitable, however, I don't view the ending as that pessimistic. I think one of the most powerful moments of the entire ending is a conversation that Armin and Zeke have in the paths. Zeke has lost everything and deems life itself as meaningless, that we only exist to procreate and continue as a species, that being alive means one day experiencing death. However, Armin brings up a counter-argument that through our actions, our experiences, what we remember, that life is worth living. There may not be a point to everything, but what we do with our lives, what we do with being alive, is what gives meaning to our existence. Zeke would have been happy just spending his days playing baseball, and yet he continued down his own path. Violence and hatred are human traits, but so is a desire to live, the desire to enjoy our time on Earth, in the experiences that we have in our lives. I've been following Attack on Titan ever since Season 1 for over 10 years now, and the series has come to its conclusion. Not that I'm trying to parrot what others say, but I believe Gigguk said it best how the ending of Attack on Titan isn't just the ending of the show, it's the ending of an era. And that's how I feel overall about the finale. Much of it was foreshadowed as far back as episode 1. Everything has been building up to this moment. Every sacrifice made, every life lost, every ally betrayed was to get to this point when the era of Titans is over and the legacy of Ymir can end. I cried at this ending a lot. I cried at Levi, Connie, and John seeing their fallen comrades. I cried at Armin and Mikasa holding onto Eren's head and saying goodbye. I cried seeing Zeke stand with his father figure and his father. and I cry knowing that this masterpiece of a story is over. But as overwhelming as the emotions can be, I can't thank Isayama and everyone involved with the production from Studio Wit and MAPPA to make this come to reality enough. The legacy of Attack on Titan will be felt for years, if not decades to come, and has been one wild ride to be a part of. As it brings us one step closer to finding the perfect anime. Hey all, thanks so much for watching these Attack on Titan episode rankings. I've had this idea for almost the whole year, and I'm glad to have these videos out finally. Thank you all who were waiting patiently for this video after part 1. I wanted to make sure that the top 10 was given its own spotlight, since these 10 episodes, at least to me, are the most outstanding of the entire series. But I'd love to know what you think. What are your top 10 episodes, or your favorite overall? How would you rank the series? How would you rank the seasons or arcs? I read every comment I receive, so I'd love to know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to sub for more anime content. I've been working on this episode ranking series for about 2 months now, and the 100 Girlfriends videos on the side, so the tier list for this fall season will be later than usual. However, it is the next video I've got planned after this one, so be sure to look out for that. Thanks for watching, and